Some interesting comments from Nashville Predators GM David Poile about the Preds' future at the trade deadline and the future of John Hynes. We'll get into both of those. Plus, if the Preds wind up selling, who are some teams that could be good potential trade partners? Plus, Tommy Novak has been a healthy scratch the past two games. A little surprising to you? We'll talk about it today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day every single day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast that's available to you wherever you get your podcasts and, of course, on YouTube as well. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at InsideThePreds.com.
Also, we have another financial partner in crime today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. All right, Ann. First off, shout out to the Robby and Rexrode show on 102.5 The Game.
Let's go.
Because they have been a big source of content for us here on Locked On Predators over the past few weeks. You may remember about a month ago, they had that interview with David Poile that yielded some juicy comments on Eeli Tolvanen's tenure with the Predators and his hot run in Seattle. And now they're back again with more from David Poile, Ann.
Yes, this was a really interesting interview. Robby and Rexrode get right to it, and they have a great rapport with Poile, where Poile is very frank with them. So again, shout out to Robby and Rexrode 102.5 The Game. But a lot of very frank comments, I think, from David Poile. He was very clear to say, I do not think we are a buyer in reference to the trade deadline. If things don't change more favorably, we could certainly be a seller.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. The other comment that I think maybe we should just address first, because, you know, I'm here for this topic is, and I'm not going to have this quote right, so forgive me, but he was asked about head coach John Hynes. And the gist of what David Poile said, and again, you can find this information on Robby and Rexrode's website to hear it verbatim. So encourage you to do that. But David Poile said, look, I think firing the head coach is the easy way out. You know, I think David Poile realizes there's a problem. He said, look, that's the easy way out. You have a roster of players and you don't have even one of them having a career year right now. I don't think that firing John Hynes is going to solve that problem. And that's the easy way out. Firing one coach is the easy way out when you have an entire team underperforming. I thought that was a very interesting comment for a fan base that I would say, Nick, and tell me if I'm wrong, wouldn't you agree that this fan base is probably leaning heavily towards fire Hynes?
I think when you read that quote, I could hear the hearts of Smashville drop.
Yes.
I feel like I could just feel like the mood shift, and I could hear whoever runs the tar, pitchfork, and torch store out there in Madison. I heard the little Homer Simpson, we're in the money routine going through his head right now.
Yes.
That dude's about to make bank.
What do you think about that comment? What do you think when he says firing John Hynes is the easy way out? What is your response to that?
Well, he's right. You know, he's not wrong in saying that, you know, John Hynes is like the end all be all for fixing this team. I mean, didn't we just have this same sort of discourse with Peter Laviolette, and where David Poile put a lot of blame on that on the players' shoulders? Remember his quote? He's like, I fired the coach because I can't fire 23 players or,
Yes.
whatever that line was.
Yes.
My thing with John Hynes, Ann, is I don't think he's the long-term solution, but I also
Mhm.
don't think he's the major problem either in Nashville.
Okay.
Look, I mean, there's definitely some things that he's done that I don't necessarily agree with. I think, when you look back at the Ellie Tolvanen situation, like say what you will about it, but I also think maybe it represented opportunity for him to maybe do something a little bit different, try something different rather than, this is my system and here's how guys are going to fit. I think he's maybe one of that coach where he's not, where he, kind of goes by line identity and not
Mhm.
necessarily what do I have on the roster and how can
Right.
I work with all these individual players to roll out like the 4 best lines and the best overall strategy. Rigid, I would say is maybe, my perception of John Hynes. But at the same
Mhm.
time, I mean, look, is John Hynes responsible for Philip Forsberg, kind of being streaky? Is John Hynes responsible for Matt Duchene having his, a career worst year followed by a career best year, followed by kind of a mid-year again? Is he responsible for the lack of effort that has been a problem before he took over as head coach? There's just a lot of fundamental things that are wrong with this Nashville Predators team, and I don't think you can put it all on Hynes.
I would agree with that, as convenient as it is, and I agree with David Poile in saying that that is the easy way out. This team needs or is looking like it's going to need. We'll see what the next couple games are because it's crapshoot, friends. You just never know what you're gonna get. But the easy way to shake up a team is to fire the head coach. But echoing what you said, went through this with Peter Laviolette. And maybe the thing that needs shaken up is not so much the head coach as it is some sort of culture, or when you have this same problem with 2 very different head coaches and you have kind of this same core, at some point in time, yes, it's very convenient to blame John Hynes, and I see what you're saying about he may not be the solution.
Bless
Sorry.
you.
Thank you. And I see that, but I also think be very careful.
Bless
Sorry
you
again.
again.
Be very careful in thinking that you're going to bring in, I don't know, Barry Trotz or whomever,
Bruce
and have them
Boudreau.
Bruce Boudreau and have him suddenly, make this team something amazing. I don't know that firing John Hynes would be enough to shake up what is broken on this core.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, you and I kind of talked about it, and we will get into it in the next segment when we have our trade thing. You and I were talking off camera yesterday, and you guys listening at home know us. We're the optimists.
we
When everybody was saying, we need to tear it down, when everybody was mad about the Preds squeaking into the playoffs a few years, we were the ones that's like, come on.
yeah.
We're the ones that's like, well, you had these guys with career seasons. Let's see where it goes. Ann and I were talking yesterday, and we both kind of said the same thing, Ann. We're kind of done with
Might
this.
be time.
Open for shaking things up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a hard that's a I have grace and abundance, friends. Grace and abundance. But yeah, we talked last night and I said, you know what? I'm feeling like it might be time. Yep.
Yeah. Uh, that's a good transition to the next piece of that David Poile interview, in which he was asked, "You going to be buyers or sellers?" And he said, "Probably, definitely not buyers. Maybe sellers if the next couple of games don't turn around. We will see if that's a realistic option for the Nashville Predators and some potential trade partners they could engage in at the trade deadline. First, though, want to take a second and mention today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, now the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's the midway point of both the NBA and NHL seasons, and so now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook, and that's because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. All you have to do is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, which is safe, secure, and easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to goal scores to three-point strain to the NBA, saves in a game, anything like that. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked on. Again, FanDuel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And we were talking about this before the break. You mentioned at the top of the show, David Poile was asked on Robby and Rexrode on 102.5 The Game yesterday about the Preds' kind of future trade plans. Basically came out and said, and I'm paraphrasing here, we're probably not buyers, and we definitely could be sellers if the team doesn't turn things around in the next couple of games. So, Anne,
interesting.
First thoughts on those comments.
Yeah, I think they're very interesting comments by David Poile. There's a part of me that feels like he is kind of drawing the line in the sand for this team. Like, this is it. You know, and if you look back, David Poile has given this core so many chances to kind of get it together and to find a groove. I'm not saying necessarily he's holding them accountable to making it back to the Stanley Cup final, but I feel like he has given this core plenty of opportunity to show that they can repeat this.
A frustrating amount of opportunities.
Yes, like Optimus squared level of opportunity by just bringing in a few pieces and adding a few pieces and believing this core can do it. It sounds to me very much like David Poile's putting a line in the sand. Like, you know what? Let's see these next couple of games. And for me, it felt a little bit different. It felt a little bit like put up or shut up from David Poile. So I think it is a decent indicator of where he's at, which I think we've waited for this season. Where are you at, David Poile? This seems like an indicator of this is where I'm at. Like put up or shut up because I'm getting ready to call it.
Do we think this is really David Poile's plans, or is this like a backwards motivational pep talk to the locker room? Basically saying like, yeah, we're going to sell, you guys can't do it.
You know what? I don't think it really matters whether we buy into that. I think it matters whether he can get the players to think it's the truth. You know, do the players think he's going to blow it up, or do they feel pretty comfortable saying, yeah, I know he's frustrated, but I mean, come on. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, what is going on, Nick? What is going on?
Well, the other thing is I don't think David Poile has a choice but to blow something up. We talked about the salary cap situation, not just for next year, but for the next couple of years. I mean, the Preds are basically handlocked with this team right now. And so he's got to make a big move if he wants to improve the roster in any sort of way. And here's the thing, Anne. I think David Poile is frustrated too. I mean, we have heard kind of whispers from people that cover the team that there's just, a different vibe with the staff kind of behind the scenes this year. David Poile spent a lot of money on getting guys this year because I think he really thought that this was, the core. Like they had turned a corner. They got some people to address some of the holes from last year's team, and they wound up being worse as a team this year. No way to sugarcoat it. So I do think there's definitely some frustration there. To an extent, if the Preds, unless they go on a great run over like the next 2 weeks, which, hey, it's the Nashville Nashville Predators.
Don't
They
count it
very
out.
well might.
Yeah.
This is a good team when it comes to consistency. I think if the Preds just kind of play at the level they're at, I do think he probably explores trading some people.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't know if it's going to be like a gangbusters kind of thing where boom, you just traded Ryan Johansson. Boom, you just traded Mattias Ekholm.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be that situation. But I think you will see, some trades for players that interest some teams.
Yes, I agree. I think David Poile's phone is going to ring, and he's going to pick it up on that first ring if the Predators don't do something very dramatic on the ice in the next 3-4 games. David Poile's going to be taking some calls, and I think he's going to be seriously considering some moves. And like you said, this is not an easy roster to blow up and recreate and start a rebuild from. But I suspect he'll start the process at the trade deadline if things don't turn around. So went on Twitter and asked our listeners, if the Preds are sellers at the trade deadline, who do you see leaving? So just want to kind of give you the breakdown of where the replies were. And then you and I are going to go down through some of these players, and we're going to talk about potential trade partners. But just so we know kind of where the fan base is, Dante Fabbro, most popular piece that fans see leaving.
I would say the most realistic one as well.
Yeah. Mikael Granlund was next in line. That's something I think we should talk about. Mattias Ekholm.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that one. And Nino Niederreiter.
That one, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting that Nino was mentioned multiple times. A couple people were mentioned just once, Lankinen, Trennan, Joey, Carrier, and Askarov, which...
no,
opens a whole 100% thing.
No. But the interesting name you mentioned in there, Anne, Kevin Lankinen. Now that's an interesting one because look, he's a free agent at the end of this year. I think the Preds would like to re-sign him. I just don't know if they can. And plus, the year he's having, he may want to go to a team that's going to give him term or some money, or at least, maybe like a 3-year deal to kind of prove he can be at the very least a 1A type starter. And I don't think the Predators with, UC Saros playing the way he is and a Askarov down in Milwaukee, probably coming up another year or two. I don't think the Predators are going to be able to give him what he wants. So it's not a bad idea to see if there's like a contender who maybe is in desperate need of goaltending to see if maybe there's a deal to be worked out there. We've heard the LA Kings have been attached to, Arizona because of both Chychrun and Karl Vejmelka. But if that doesn't work out, do they pick up the phone and see if Lankinen's available? Same thing for the Edmonton Oilers, who other than Stuart Skinner don't really have, that solid level. In Las Vegas, Logan Thompson's gotten a little bit cool here lately, and they don't really have a viable backup. There are some teams out there that are going to be interested in a guy who leads the league in goals saved above expected per game and is also one of the top leaders in save percentage this year. That guy's going to interest some teams. Yeah,
he is. And here's the thing. If Nashville is trending downward, and you're looking at the next season or two of really just trying to reconfigure a team, this would be the time to get something for Kevin Lankinen. Because if you're a playoff team, I agree with you. If you are a team looking to get into the playoffs or, fighting for that in a situation far more positive looking than the Predators, Kevin Lankinen is a backup goaltender you want. He is a goaltender you want. And from Lankinen's point of view, can't blame him for wanting to go. He maybe didn't get many looks coming off of his statistics in Chicago. I think he has done enough in Nashville other teams have seen enough to know what he is capable of. I agree with you. Kevin Lankinen is a very interesting name. Not happy about it, but I think it's a very interesting name. There are, of course, other interesting names that we do need to get to, and we're going to break those down and talk about what teams might be interested in some of these Predators players if David Poile decides to pull the trigger and sell. Going to do that in just a minute, but want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Built Bar. Nick and I have told you this a million times, and we mean it every time. If you're looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want a bunch of fat or calories, you got to go get yourself a Built Bar. You know, we just got through the holidays, and I know that my goal was to eat a little bit healthier, just make a few more better choices. But I also want something that tastes good and it's going to satisfy me. And I'm telling you, you got to try a Built Bar. With Built Bar, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they are so delicious. You are not even going to sit there and think, oh my gosh, I'm eating a protein bar. They are perfect for any health-related New Year's resolution. So what makes these Built Bars so good? First of all, look, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, it's real chocolate. And they come in all kinds of great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. And I don't know how they do it, but I know they're very successful at it because Built Bars taste like a candy bar, but they have amazing macros. They are healthy for you. When you eat a Built Bar, you're only consuming about 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar. You're getting a whopping 17 grams of protein. And great news, now you don't have to wait around to get a box in the mail. For years, we've been talking about going to built.com. Now you have some other options. You can go to Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, head to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a 4-count box of, I don't know, maybe cookies and cream, one of our favorites, or double chocolate. If you're in Sam's Club and you like things that are bigger and better, grab your 13-count box with hit flavors like brownie batter or churro or coconut puffs. You can thank me later. And of course, you can always find Built Bars at built.com. Wherever you get your Built Bars, whether you get them at built.com, Sam's Club, or Walmart, you are getting a healthy snack that tastes great. So check them out, built.com.
All right, Ann. A couple other names mentioned on the list. We'll get into like the potential returns for some of these players in another episode. But you mentioned Mikael Granlund as a name that stuck out to you on this list. Everybody else, it seems like we've kind of touched on,
right?
But Granlund's one that you kind of wanted to circle back on.
I did want to circle back on this one. And I think this is, I think Granny is a very interesting one for a couple of reasons. First of all, he's not having a great season here in Nashville. I think that we can agree that this is not the Mikael Granlund that we saw last season that helped Duchesne and Forsberg have their career years as well. Granny is struggling a little bit here, but I think other teams have seen enough from him that he still has a tremendous amount of value. This is somebody who's making $5 million a year. He's a UFA in 2025-26. I would not be terribly surprised if there is some interest in Mikael Granlund. And I would also not be terribly surprised this season with the way things are trending, not only this season, but down the road for the Predators, to see Mikael Granlund be a piece that maybe gets moved. I don't know. What do you think?
I think he's definitely I guess the way I would describe it is maybe the most movable of the unmovable contracts. I think 2 years left at $4 or $5 million per year, which isn't bad.
No.
Like there's definitely a team out there that needs somebody like Granlund, maybe in their middle six. That would definitely be willing to take on that contract. So I think that definitely makes him a target, and that's $5 million off the books for the Nashville Predators. So at least you have some flexibility, to maybe do some more finagling or retain salary for a bigger contract, whichever you want to do with that. And I mean, I go through these lists of names, and I think there's definitely trade partners out there that Nashville can make something like this work. When you talk about Mikael Granlund, there's a team like the Carolina Hurricanes who are kind of desperate for another high-scoring winger. Apparently, they kicked the tires on Vladimir Tarasenko earlier. They're reportedly interested in Kane. The Dallas Stars, that would be painful, but they have a lot of top-end scores and are apparently looking for somebody to kind of fill out some depth scoring, somebody to play with, Jason Robertson right now. So there are some teams out there. And another intriguing one is the Toronto Maple Leafs, just based on the fact that they're kind of desperate for defense right now. And Dante Fabbro, if Ben Sherratt got a first-round pick last year, and if Gavrikov in Columbus, Columbus is apparently willing to hold out for, multiple top 4-round picks for him. You can get a first for Dante Fabbro.
Yeah.
Like, you can easily get a first for Dante Fabbro, somebody that's not going to have to be like an absolute minute muncher for them, somebody who's just going to be like a depth guy. Maybe somebody like Edmonton too. That's more interesting because, they're trying to move some young players, namely Jesse Puljarvi.
Yes.
Is that a 1-for-1 swap that David Poile tries to finagle?
That would be a very interesting move. That would be, I would be open to having some discussion on that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's worth kicking the tires on, but I think that's the point, Anna. I think there's a lot of teams out there that if the Predators wanted to be sellers, you could go in there and conceivably make something work with a number of different teams across the league at the deadline. Obviously much more in the off season when everybody's kind of off the books and willing to take a step back and, not wanting to miss the chemistry of the team. But I think when it comes to the deadline, the Preds have some very good partners.
I would agree with you. And I think we're going to see, and again, if the Predators don't turn this around in dramatic fashion, I think you're going to see a couple of pieces move at the trade deadline. I agree with you, though. I think if David Poile is really going to deconstruct this team to the best of his ability with the contracts they have on the books, most of that is going to happen in the offseason. But I think the Predators are going to be active at the trade deadline if the team does not turn things around, and they're running out of time.
Yeah. One other interesting topic.
Yes.
Tommy Novak has been a healthy scratch for the last 2 games. He was scratched in favor of Mark Jankowski back against Philadelphia. Also scratched in the Arizona win on Monday. A little surprised at this, Ann, because I went back, I was just kind of thinking like, maybe he's just cold, haven't heard a lot from him. He's not really. 3 assists in the past 5 games he's played, which, isn't bad for a depth scorer. Yeah. I don't really know what to make of that.
I don't either. And this one puzzles me. At first I was like, well, it's just a chance to kind of rotate Mark Jankowski back in because he had been out since, early to mid-January. Jankowski had kind of a real rough game. And so Novak had been in. Yeah, I know. I was just trying to kind of gloss over that because, but I don't know why we haven't seen Novak back, because here's what I will say about Tommy Novak. I think Tommy Novak came in and he was very much an unsung hero of some games. He is not going to be your flashiest player, but I think he is somebody who is such a good playmaker for people he is on the ice with. Of course, he was a goal scorer as well. And I think, he could be a piece on the second power play unit. I don't feel like there were any glaring holes in his two-way game necessarily, any more so than we've seen, quite frankly, up and down the entire lineup. I don't know what's going on with Tommy Novak. I am mystified by this one. I feel like he is an unsung bright spot for the Predators since he got in the lineup, and I am very hopeful we will see him back in the lineup against Boston. I'll be a little bit concerned if we don't.
Yeah, I went back just through some of his game logs, and there's a lot of 9 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes. A lot of power play time, which makes me think maybe Hines is seeing something in his two-way game that he doesn't necessarily like. Or it could just be that he doesn't think he can play a full fourth line role, but I don't know. Yeah, I like the way that Tommy Novak played. I think he gave a lot of energy, especially in the offensive zone, which, as we've seen the past three games,
Take it
is
home.
something the Predators have kind of been lacking on.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. Curious if anybody asked John Hynes about it if he's not in the lineup against Boston. But yeah, we'll have to see, Ann.
Yeah, this is one that I would love, just a little bit more information on, because I'm not sure why we're not seeing Tommy Novak in the lineup.
Well, tomorrow, Predators play the Boston Bruins. That can go one of two ways.
Honest to Pete,
Just our history with this team.
it could be anything. You could literally get anything out of this game, friends. So just buckle up and have a snack, because I don't know.
Yeah, buckle up for either the most embarrassing loss of the year
Mhm.
or a 5-1 Predators victory with probably nothing in between. So we'll preview that game tomorrow, plus some other topics to cover on the Locked On Predators podcast. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at insidethepreds.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at ontheforecheck.com. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. And while you're there, be sure to follow the podcast as well, LO_Predators. However, you're listening to us, whether you are streaming us on your favorite podcasting platform or watching us on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Not only does it help us out, but it also lets you know when we have fresh content available for you to enjoy. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.